Chapter 31. Another deadlock. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The spiritual shield floating in front of Zhang Jianqi dimmed, and the purple gold robe on his body was blown into pieces. He clenched his teeth tightly, and blood slowly flowed out. His internal organs had been displaced by the explosion. If he could not be treated in time, the root cause of his illness would remain. If he used her spiritual power at this time, it would definitely worsen the injuries in his body. The problem was that Wan was eyeing him covetously. He was able to survive in the core of the explosion of the magic tool thanks to the spiritual shield in his hand. Now, the spiritual shield was unable to support itself anymore. A powerful spiritual energy fluctuation attacked Zhang Jianqi. It was obvious that it came from Wan. Zhang Jianqi could only fight with all his might. As for the subordinates he brought with him, they were either dead or injured. They were basically unable to fight anymore. He endured the pain in his body and circulated his spiritual power, his heart filled with regret. Why did she have to get close to him just now? Why must she mock him? Why did he not make one last hit? Wan's spirit energy kept pouring out. Although she did not know any powerful spells, the spirit energy in her body was quite huge, and the pure spirit energy pouring out was also quite powerful. Otherwise, Wan would not have been able to resist Su Yunhe's attack alone when Zhang Jianqi was in the illusion. Now, this powerful force was directed at Zhang Jianqi. Without the protection of the spiritual shield, the protective talismans on his body had also been exhausted. Now, he could only use spells to resist. Unfortunately, his body had suffered serious damage, and the frequency and speed of his spiritual power had plummeted. Soon, Zhang Jianqi was like a dead dog, lying on the ground after getting beaten. Wan saw that all the enemies she had to defeat were on the ground and heaved a sigh of relief. However, she did not relax. She did not forget the person who had sent her a voice transmission. If it was not for Zhang Jianqi's serious injuries, she would not have killed him immediately. She would have waited for Qingge to step out. Wan's cold gaze swept across the group of people around her. She would definitely not let this group of people off. The news of her heavenly demon charm body must not spread. Otherwise, it might attract countless old monsters. There could be no coincidences. "Come out, let's have a good talk," Wan said calmly as she scanned the surroundings. Up until now, she still did not know who had sent her a voice transmission. After all, it was just a voice transmission. They had not really spoken to each other. At most, she just moved her pinky finger. Qingge was feeling a little conflicted. Logically speaking, he could be considered half her savior. If she was not unsealed when she would probably have become a toy in someone else's hands. Wan definitely would not let the people who knew about her heavenly demon charm body leave this place. What was half a savior to her? Qingge had been preparing his trump card just now. The spiritual power in Wan's body was indeed very strong, and her method of using it was too simple. Meanwhile, he knew how to use spells, talismans, and magic tools. If he did it properly, there was indeed a chance to kill her. Wan's power was directly instilled into her body. Even if he could kill Wan, he would definitely be seriously injured. There were still many qi refinement offerings that had not died here, and he would not be able to deal with them alone. First, he pretended to be deaf and dumb. He lay down to observe the situation. After a long and fierce battle, even if Wan's spirit energy was still abundant, her spirit might not be able to last much longer. Wan's expression darkened when she saw that no one responded to her. There were many qi refinement offerings on the ground pretending to be dead. After hesitating for a moment, she did not attack immediately. Instead, she went to the blood-colored lotus throne and began to recuperate. She pretended to be recuperating, but in fact, she was preparing to refine the array formation here. Zhu Jing arranged the array, so she naturally grew to be quite familiar with it after staying here for such a long time. The atmosphere instantly lightened up when they saw Wan recuperate with her eyes closed. The oppressive atmosphere in the space had dissipated a lot. Everyone was still on guard against each other. No one took the lead to stand up and leave. No one wanted to stand out. There were also people who looked at Wan greedily. Most of them were silently recovering from their injuries. Seeing this, Hichinga looked around and began to transmit his voice to the others. Now that there was only one big shot left, he definitely could not wait for her to recover. Don't make a sound, don't answer, and remain silent. The heavenly demon charm body must be in a bad condition. If we let her recover, she definitely won't let anyone who knows about her heavenly demon charm body leave this place alive. When she recovers, all of us will die. Hichinga sent a voice transmission to everyone except Wan. Soon, the group of people looked at each other, trying to find out who was the one who was passing the message. Hichinga was still playing dead. With his hearing, he could sense their movements even without using his eyes. The crowd was still dead silent. Many people knew this, but the question was who would take the lead. Once someone stepped forward, they would definitely receive Wan's crazy attacks. Without a high.grade or top.grade protective talisman, they probably would not be able to resist Wan's attacks at all. Hichinga felt a little uncomfortable seeing that no one stood up. He specially selected those who were still alive and those with the strongest combat ability, trying to bewitch them. There was still no effect. No one took the initiative to step forward. It was a stalemate. Seeing this situation, Hichinga felt that he was being too smart. This group of people must have known about this long ago. After he sent the voice transmission, the group of people thought that there was still someone who would step out to be the sacrificial lamb. They were just waiting for that person to appear. The trapping array had locked everyone here, and Zhang Jianqi had placed the array compass in advance. The level 1 top.grade spirit stone provided spiritual power, so there was no need for human control. Even if he died, this trap array would still remain. It was precisely because of the energy provided by the level 1 top.grade spirit stone that Su Yunha's magic weapon attack did not instantly break through the array. Hichinga did not plan to stand up for himself. Whoever stood would definitely be beaten up by Wan. If the others did not react, he would die in vain. Even if he was lucky enough to kill Wan with his trump card, his vitality would definitely be greatly damaged, and the possibility of escaping would be even smaller. Everyone was silently circulating the spiritual energy in their bodies, accumulating their strength and waiting for the situation to change. They hoped to leave this place alive or get a share of the loot. There were 2 strong physique cultivators and 2 peak.stage chi refinement realm cultivators who had died here. They had a lot of good things with them. Soon, Hichinga's pupils constricted. Chapter 32. A decent person fights head. On you are listening at novelfull.audio. Through hearing, Hichinga discovered that Wan was currently using her spiritual power to refine the array formation encapsulating Beacon City. Even if the array formation was not very powerful now, once it was under her control, all of them combined would not be Wan's match. A voice rang out in the empty sky. She's refining the array formation around Beacon City. Hurry up and stop her. Otherwise, everyone will die when she succeeds. Hichinga used the vibration of sound waves to speak in the sky. His voice was vast and loud, making everyone think he sounded very ethereal. Everyone's gaze was focused on Wan, and they were also shocked by the vast and majestic voice that came from the sky. They did not realize who was talking. The voice also woke Wan, who was refining the array with her eyes closed. Although the voice that spoke was different from the voice transmission, she still thought that it was the same person. He just changed his voice, which was a piece of cake for immortal cultivators. Her cold and sharp eyes swept across the surroundings. The vast spiritual power of the peak of the chi refinement realm in her body instantly poured out, and a powerful pressure pervaded the air. Everyone else felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on their hearts. Now, those who could fight were basically all mid-stage Qi refinement cultivators. There was not a single late-stage Qi refinement cultivator. The late-stage Qi refinement cultivators were basically all lying on the ground, unable to fight anymore. It was either that or they were dead. In fact, other than Wan, the most powerful person here was only at the 6th level of Qi refinement. Wan's strength was at the peak of the 12th level of Qi refinement. There was a difference of 6 levels. Many people subconsciously lowered their heads when they met Wan's gaze. Seeing this, Qingge's heart sank. He could not help but think of the quintessence of his previous life. Not a single F*King person took the initiative to step forward. That makes sense. Everyone, let's attack together. At this moment, a very rough-looking man with a strong body spoke. Everyone looked over. Wan's brows were also tightly furrowed as she instantly gathered her strength to attack. The brawny man was also shocked by the voice. It was not him at all. However, the voice sounded right in front of him, and he was powerless to defend himself. Wan's attack also arrived in front of him. He could only be forced to be the leader while feeling quite aggrieved. Everyone, let's attack together. When she refines the array formation, we really won't be able to resist. At that time, I'm afraid we'll all be buried here. That voice is right. The burly man helplessly activated the few protective talismans he had and conjured a spell to attack Wan. He was just a rogue cultivator with limited cultivation resources. It was not easy for him to reach the 6th level of the Qi refinement realm. He had experienced countless life and death situations. He had never felt so aggrieved before. The feeling of being forced to stand up for others was a huge taboo for rogue cultivators like him. There was no other way now. Everyone was looking at him and thought that he was the one who spoke. Wan's spiritual attack poured onto his body, and the Vajra talisman stuck to his body broke. However, he also blocked Wan's attack this time. He heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, and the counter-attack spell hit Wan's spiritual energy barrier, causing ripples. Wan used the simplest method of using spiritual energy. She used spiritual energy to wrap her body to form a spiritual energy shield and condensed spiritual energy into a ball to attack. Fortunately, the spiritual power in her body was huge, and the heavenly demon charm body was extraordinary. The total amount of spiritual power in her body far exceeded the amount in Zhang Jianqi and Su Yunhe. After using her spiritual energy so inefficiently, she still had an abundance of spiritual energy. It was really enviable. Seeing the burly man block the first wave of attacks, the other people's thoughts changed. Many people also followed suit and used spells to attack. As more and more people joined in, Qingge also took advantage of the situation. As the number of people attacking increased, Wan also began to struggle slightly. The main reason was that she had not experienced the orthodox cultivation method and could not unleash her strength. Otherwise, she would have been able to kill many people. This was the importance of Tao and law on the path of cultivation. Zhu Zheng was also afraid that an accident would happen to her with such a top-notch physique. He only taught her a method to cooperate with the array formation and forcefully absorb spiritual energy to activate her body. He did not teach her any hand spells, nor did he teach her the tricks of circulating the spiritual power in her body. As the battle slowly began, some people died. In the beginning, Wan wanted to choose the strongest people to establish her dominance, but she realized that the stronger the people, the stronger their defensive methods would be. They all had Vajra talismans in their hands that could resist her attacks. Even if they could not completely resist, they would not be instantly killed. She would slowly start by killing those lower-level Qi refinement cultivators to reduce the pressure on herself and increase the pressure on the other party. Qingge was at the top of the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm. He was covered with protective talismans. He had prepared a lot when he came. From time to time, he would throw out hidden weapons and steel needles. These steel needles were coated with poison. Unfortunately, Wan Wan was very cautious and always used spiritual energy to wrap her body. The steel needles hit her body but could not break through her spiritual energy defense. As the number of people decreased, Hichinga's lips curled into a smile. No one noticed that there was incense slowly burning at a corner. The incense's name was Drunken Dragon. It was very domineering. The effect was also quite good. It made people intoxicated and made the spiritual energy in their bodies uncontrollable and chaotic. It would cause them to be unable to use spiritual energy for a short period of time. It could also make people weak and unable to exert any strength. Other than that, some poisonous fog was also slowly dissipating. The battle was in full swing, so many people did not notice this. Actually, Hichinga had already prepared this thing a long time ago, but he had to be very careful. When Zhu Zheng still did not come back, he asked the sound, gathering butterfly to bring his storage bag and place all kinds of poison in Drunken Dragon in various secret places. These things were best used in a sealed place. The battle between the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators had already destroyed the hall. Without a sealed space, the effect would be much worse. Thanks to Zhang Jianqi's barrier array, the entire venue was sealed with a barrier. This allowed him to use these things with the greatest efficiency. The reason why he did not use it when Su Yunhe and Zhang Niji were fighting was because they were experienced and knowledgeable. They might even have antidotes. Now, the strongest person left was the one with the worst knowledge. No one had taught her these things. Most of the other people here were not from large sections. The things that Hichinga bought were all quite expensive. How could ordinary rogue cultivators afford them? Even if there was someone who knew about them, it was already too late. Some people began to have spots of unknown color on their bodies, and then their bodies became weak. One by one, they fell to the ground. Hichinga followed suit, pretending to fall to the ground. Wan Wan was very surprised at this moment. She was very clear that this had nothing to do with her. Soon, she thought of the person who had sent her a voice transmission and who was hiding in the dark. She gritted her teeth. She felt the discomfort in her body. Her control of spiritual power was already very shallow, but now, it seemed to be out of control. The hatred in her heart surged with endless fear. Could it be that she would return to her original days? Would she be locked up aimlessly while being forced to absorb a huge amount of essence every day? Did she have to endure the pain that made her days feel like years? Chapter 33. 6 Conditions to Get Rich in One Day. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hichinga looked at the others who had fallen to the ground. Wan Wan was still struggling and continued to lie on the ground, pretending to be dead. The people lying on the ground felt as if their hearts had been trampled by 10,000 divine beasts. Especially the brawny man who was forced to be the leader. He was cursing in his heart. Angry curses resounded throughout the entire space. Open the barrier and disperse the poisonous gas. Someone in the crowd suddenly reminded everyone else. Wan Wan immediately took out the array compass. Previously, she killed Zhang Jianqi and snatched the array compass from him. She could not let this thing fall into the hands of others. After all, she wanted everyone to stay. Be careful behind you. Hichinga cursed in his heart. He did not expect these people to react so quickly. However, it was too late now. They were deeply poisoned. Even if they opened the barrier to disperse the poisonous gas, they still would not be able to move. Hichinga still did not intend to let them get what they wanted. Noel Deren, he immediately stood up and pointed behind Wan Wan as he loudly reminded her. Wan Wan saw Hichinga's expression and the direction he was pointing at. She immediately turned her head. At this moment, Hichinga circulated the spiritual energy in his body and quickly approached Wan Wan. He was the one who had concocted all these intoxicating fragrances and poisons. Naturally, he had the antidote, so he was not affected by Drunken Dragon at all. Wan Wan turned her head, and her pupils contracted. There was no one behind her, so she immediately realized that she had been deceived. She was furious and wanted to circulate the spiritual power in her body to attack. Her control of spiritual power was already quite shallow, and now that she was disturbed, she could not use it normally. She immediately turned around and fled, trying to stall for time and force out the poisonous gas in her body. The main power of the Qi refinement realm was the spiritual energy in the body. If one could not mobilize the spiritual energy in one's body, the strength of one's body would be too weak. Unless it was a specialized body cultivator. When Chinga saw this, he immediately threw the flying needle in his hand over and stabbed it into Wan Wan's body. The poison seeped into her body. There were green marks on Wan Wan's body as she fell to the ground weakly. Her face was filled with despair. Chinga took out his magic longsword and slashed at Wan Wan with a sword light. Just as the sword light was about to strike out, he had a faint premonition of extreme danger. An inexplicable sense of danger came out of nowhere. Chinga immediately scanned his surroundings vigilantly. His body kept moving, activating the Vajra talisman on his body. His hearing was unleashed to the maximum. He wanted to see who could threaten him. When he withdrew his attack, the sense of danger disappeared. Chinga raised his eyebrows slightly, and the sword light in his hand once again condensed. It aimed at Wan Wan. Just as he was about to attack, the sense of danger appeared again. He felt an extremely terrifying life-and-death crisis. He felt that as long as he slashed out with this sword, he would die. Chinga was a little annoyed and helpless. What was this inexplicable sense of crisis? He did not notice anyone else guarding Wan Wan either. Could it be that the person was too strong and he could not detect them? Chinga raised his sword and hesitated for a moment before he immediately slashed at everyone except Wan Wan. Those people were all lying on the ground, unable to move. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, unable to resist. In just a few breaths, Chinga had dealt with everyone except Wan Wan. The blood flowed into a long river, dyeing the ground red. A painting of murderous intent was formed. He stood in front of Wan Wan with a sword in his hand, his expression calm. Blood was still dripping from the sword. Are you going to kill me? If you want to kill me quickly. Wan Wan was expressionless. Perhaps dying would be the best outcome for her. Humph. I never wanted to kill you. I think you should have guessed it. I was the one who sent you a voice transmission in the beginning. Speaking of which, I can be considered your half-savior. Chinga stabbed the sword into the ground and took the formation compass from her hand. Wan Wan gritted her teeth. You want to be like them too? How could that be? I'm only at the 5th level of Qi refinement now. If I want to build my foundation, I'm afraid I'll have to wait for decades. Chinga smiled helplessly. Wan Wan frowned. She did not think Chinga would be so easy to talk to. Then what do you want? Chinga's cultivation was only at the 5th level of Qi refinement. She did feel that he was at the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm, but she quickly shook this thought out of her mind. It was definitely not the case. It must be a disguise. I can let you go and even be your guide on the path of cultivation, as long as you promise me 3 things unconditionally in the future. Chinga said calmly. Is it that simple? Wan Wan was rather surprised and somewhat in disbelief. Chinga had been ready to attack her with a murderous look on his face just a moment ago, and now he wanted to let her go. It felt a little unreal. Sigh, since you think it's easy, then let's double it. Promise me 6 things unconditionally in the future. Chinga smiled. Wan Wan was a little speechless when she heard that. She wanted to say something but did not say it in the end and nodded. Since that's the case, then swear an oath to the Tao of the heavens. Chinga taught Wan Wan in detail how to make a heavenly Tao oath. The Heavenly Tao Oath was rather complicated and had a strong binding force on cultivators. If one did not fulfill the oath, one would be despised by the world. At that time, qi deviation was a common occurrence. The main thing was that it would inadvertently affect a person's future and completely cut off their future without them realizing it. The inner demon oath was also possible, but one had the heavenly demon charm body, so she would be immune to inner demons after she gave birth to the heavenly demon bone. This kind of oath might not work on her. After spending a long time, one finally succeeded in making a heavenly Tao oath. She would promise him 6 things unconditionally in the future. Of course, there were also some additional terms. For example, she was not allowed to attack him, do anything to harm him, secretly harm him, and so on. With the experience of signing all kinds of contracts in his previous life, Hichinga made many detailed additions to these additional clauses. This was to ensure his own safety. Even after the heavenly Tao oath, Hichinga still did not let her go immediately. He was afraid that she would be ignorant and fearless and would take the risk of violating the heavenly Tao oath to attack him. He used all sorts of methods to seal the massive amount of spiritual energy in her body and then used all sorts of tools to tie her up. After that, he began to pick up all his spoils of war. It could be said to be a wave of wealth. Hichinga could not help but sigh. He had been working hard in Tianxian sect for 20 years. In the end, the reward he received was not even a fraction of what he had gotten from this trip. Hard work could not achieve wealth. It could only make one live a well-off life. Seeing the treasures on the ground, the corners of Hichinga's mouth unconsciously curled up. His smile gradually became a little crazy, and he could not help but laugh a few times. The feeling of sudden wealth constantly impacted his heart. He had suffered so much in the past 20 years, and he was always tired and busy. It was really better to kill and rob all at once. Even he could not help the temptation after living in seclusion for 20 years, let alone others. Chapter 34. Returning to the Tianxian sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hichinga first searched the bodies of the 2 foundational cultivators. It was a pity that their Taoist robes were now in tatters and had been completely damaged during the battle. Otherwise, they would have been quite good defensive magic tools for him. It was precisely because their battle was so intense that their Taoist robes were damaged, allowing one to kill them in one strike. Otherwise, if she wanted to kill Zhu Zheng, she would have to break through the defense of his Taoist robe first. If there was a slight obstruction, it might give Zhu Zheng a chance to live. Well, Zhu Zheng deserved to die regardless. Zhu Zheng had 3 storage bags on him, and the space inside was much larger than Hichinga's own. The amount of resources piled up was also beyond his imagination. First, there were several thousand spirit coins. In addition, there were also a few inheritance jade plates, which were the most commonly used cultivation method inheritance tools in the cultivation world. There was also a stack of talismans. Hichinga's interest was piqued. This was what he was most interested in. Talismans were the most suitable life-saving tools for weak cultivators like him. He did not need to use too much spiritual energy like when using a magic weapon. He only needed a wisp of spiritual energy to activate it. To be honest, talismans were the best option for people like Hichinga, who had low strength and not quite enough spiritual energy in his body. They were good life-saving tools. They were treasures that could achieve extreme counter-killing. Unfortunately, there were not many left. Most of them had been used in the previous battle. Hichinga did a detailed check. 3 level .2 low-grade protective talismans that could block attacks at the Foundation Establishment realm. 4 level .2 low grade attack talismans, producing an all-out attack at the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Whether it was an offensive or defensive talisman, it was slightly weaker than a real spell. However, it was not much weaker. The main advantage was that it consumed less energy. The rest were all chi refinement. Level talismans, which were basically level 0.1 top. Grade talismans. These were already quite precious to Hichinga. At the very least, he would not be too afraid of anyone at the chi refinement realm. If he activated berating, he could freeze the enemy for a few seconds. He could then follow up with an attack talisman, causing an instant kill. He could only think about it in his heart. The real battle still depended on the actual situation. For example, he had never thought that this would be the result of his trip out. A weakling like him actually became the biggest winner. Of course, that was excluding the person who was secretly following Wan. If there really was someone protecting Wan in secret, why was she being treated like this? Or was there someone new who had taken a fancy to Wan's heavenly demon charm body? Just now, when he wanted to kill Wan, he felt a strong sense of crisis. It was also possible that her special body had a unique ability. There could also be other reasons, but he was not sure. Hichinga's joy was mixed with worry. He only collected all the spoils of war and did a simple search. He did not go into detail. He did not want to waste a lot of time in this place. He felt a sense of urgency. He had a serious fear of insufficient firepower after leaving the Tianxian sect. After putting away all the treasures, Hichinga came to the blood-red lotus throne in the middle. This was the array foundation that encapsulated the entire beacon city. It was an extraordinary treasure and was quite expensive. There was also the pure crystal under the blood-colored lotus throne. This was the core of the array. Apart from that, there were also the array tools of the small temple. Together, they formed the core of the array. Hichinga kept all of them. These things were many times more valuable than the array compass that Zhang Jiqiang had. After all the treasures were packed up, he built a fire to burn all the corpses. Hichinga nodded in satisfaction after the fire had burned out and he left no treasures behind. When he arrived in front of Wan, she was still in a half-dead state. She watched helplessly as Hichinga took away all the treasures. Now, I should fulfill my promise and guide you on the path of cultivation. Hichinga was in a very good mood now, and his tone was much gentler. Really? Wan originally thought that she was already very lucky to be able to leave alive. Hichinga nodded. There was not any deep hatred between him and Wan, so he was still half her savior. Wan also agreed to 6 conditions. Once she stepped onto the path of cultivation, she would understand the power of heavenly Tao oath. The stronger she was, the more valuable these 6 conditions would be. Moreover, after teaching her, he would be able to return to Tianxian sect. It was hard to say whether the two of them would meet in the future, but they could be considered fated. After all, the heavenly demon charm body might become a big shot in the future. Once one was in a high position, the price one had to pay if one violated the heavenly Tao oath would be even greater. The higher the position of a person, the more things they could not let go of. As for the cultivation technique he wanted to teach Wan, he could also teach her the cultivation technique of the Tianxian sect. He only cultivated the most basic techniques, which could be practiced in the entire territory of the Tianxian sect. However, Hichinga did not intend to teach her the cultivation technique of the Tianxian sect. It would be best if she could leave the territory of the Tianxian sect. He found an inheritance cultivation technique from an inheritance jade plate. Lesser fallen jade lotus technique, he gave her some general knowledge of cultivation and some necessary precautions. These things were very important. Many itinerant cultivators died for no reason because they did not know about these things. It was extremely difficult for itinerant cultivators to truly grow. They also needed luck. In the end, Hichinga pointed out the path and direction of the heavenly demon sect. Then, he quickly left with the sound, gathering butterfly. Wan looked at Hichinga's back as he left, and for a moment, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. BL.net The poison in her body had completely disappeared, and the purple marks left behind by the poison had also completely disappeared. She did not expect Hichinga to really let her go and even teach her the real cultivation method. Of course, the reason Hichinga was so relieved was that Wanwan had abolished the huge amount of spiritual energy in her body and started cultivating again. However, the cultivation speed of her heavenly demon charm body was really not to be underestimated. In just one night, she had already reached the first level of the Qi refinement realm. Of course, it was also possible that the foundation was left behind by the huge amount of spiritual energy from before. When Hichinga saw this, he was really envious and jealous. Fortunately, he believed that his future would not be worse than Wanwan's. He could infinitely strengthen one's talent. Every time one contracted a pet with stronger potential, one's potential would become stronger. After Hichinga left, he also investigated the situation inside Beacon City. Everything related to the array formation was taken away. He quickly returned to the Tianxian sect to report on the mission. After Hichinga was trapped, the horse had gone missing. He killed the owner of the inn. Previously, he paid for nearly a year's rent in that inn, which naturally included the food for the horse. It had only been a few months, and the horse with the bloodline of a demon beast had gone missing. The main thing was that he did not have the soul search technique, and he did not want to waste too much time outside as it would attract other dangers. He just killed the boss of the inn and left Beacon City. He pasted several body-lifting talismans, speed talismans, shelter talismans, and protection talismans onto the body of the ordinary horse he was riding. In just a few days, he returned to the Tianxian sect. Chapter 35. Invasion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hichinga finally felt at ease after returning to the Tianxian sect. The tension and fatigue from the journey had dissipated quite a bit. He used a spirit coin to pay for the horse with the demonic beast bloodline he had rented previously. They were not surprised. Countless people had lost such horses outside. They were not valuable items and were not spirit beasts. Moreover, it was even better that he lost it. How much money could they get from renting it? After that, he went to the Tianxian sect's merit room to hand over the mission. The disciple who received Hichinga in the merit room looked a little surprised. It was the person who had given Hichinga the mission. He did not expect Hichinga to come back alive. It was indeed beyond his expectations. The Tianxian sect forbade disciples from killing each other, but this rule was only effective in the Tianxian sect. Zhang Jianqi sent Hichinga out on a mission, which meant that he wanted to kill Hichinga. However, he failed and allowed Hichinga to return alive. The disciple of the merit room carefully sized up Hichinga and found that his cultivation had not changed much. He was still at the 5th level of Qi refinement, but his aura was more condensed and his body was emitting a faint murderous aura. It gave people a vague sense of pressure. His aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. Hichinga was like a pure white lamb before he left the Tianxian sect. Now, he looked like a wolf after its bloodlust. Alright, I'll record it. If there's no problem, we'll settle the accounts at the end of the month. Right, my name is Li Kong. You can look for me for your next mission. Li Tsong, the disciple of the merit room, took the initiative to show his goodwill. No matter what the reason was, Hichinga was able to escape from Zhang Jianqi, which meant that he was a capable person worth befriending. Thank you, then. I'll have to trouble you to take care of me in the future, fellow Taoist. Hichinga cupped his hands after hearing this, his expression indifferent. He took out a low-grade spirit stone and placed it on the table. Calling Li Tsong fellow Taoist was actually a bit of an exaggeration. His current strength was only at the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm. However, the mission this time had given him a lot of bloodlust. He even killed those at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. Many mid-stage and late-stage Qi refinement realm cultivators had died in his hands, so he suddenly became bold. Li Tsong looked at Hichinga in surprise. He had changed so much after just one mission. In the past, when he came to the merit room to ask for a mission, although his expression was very calm and indifferent, one could still see the fear in his eyes. He was confident, but not confident enough. The situation was completely different now, and his attitude toward Hichinga had increased by another level. Looking at the spirit stone on the table, Li Tsong smiled and became more friendly. "You're welcome. Let's take care of each other." After bidding farewell to Li Tsong, Hichinga returned to the Imperial Beast Peak, preparing to take over the work of tending the Spirit Beast Garden. His identity as the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden was only his job. He was a servant disciple who needed to do these chores. Although he had the title of a manager, he was actually still a servant disciple. The official disciples could cultivate all day long and did not need to be busy with such chores. The cultivation resources that official disciples came into contact with were also much more than that of servant disciples. This world was ultimately the world of the strong. Cultivation time was rather precious, and the time to cultivate in peace was rather important. The sex missions and jobs were two different things. Even if one had a job at the Imperial Beast Peak, one still had to carry out the sex missions. These were two different systems. Even official disciples had to carry out sect missions. However, the timing was slightly adjusted. It was not once every 3 years. It could even be adjusted according to the conditions of each peak. The so-called official disciples were outer sect disciples, inner sect disciples, true disciples, and so on. The higher the level, the more cultivation resources they could obtain. In Spirit Beast Garden number 3 of the Tian Xian sect on the Imperial Beast Peak, Hichinga pushed open the door to the Spirit Beast Garden. The moment he entered, he saw a rather elegant figure lying on a rocking chair that he had specially made, swaying leisurely. It seemed that this was the person who took over the management of the Spirit Beast Garden during his mission. Hichinga walked over with a smile. "Fellow Taoist, you've really worked hard during this period of time." "Hard? It's not hard. I feel quite comfortable." Feng Yu, who was lying on the rocking chair, said with a fake smile. He did not seem to have the intention of getting up at all. Hichinga's eyes narrowed as he looked at the other party, who seemed to be indifferent and had no intention of getting up. He did not intend to make himself seem like a pushover, so he said coldly, "Fellow Taoist, my sect mission has been completed. I need to take over the work again. Your work has been reassigned by the sect. You're no longer stationed here. Go to the miscellaneous room and ask them about it." Feng Yu said. Zhang Jianqi wanted to make a move on Hichinga. Since he had to go through the sect's merit room, there must be more than one person who knew about it. Naturally, some people had their eyes on Hichinga's original position as the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden. Hichinga did not say anything after hearing this. He turned around and went to the miscellaneous room to ask about it. After learning that his strength level was too low, he was now arranged to be the keeper of Spirit Beast Garden number 3. His status had dropped by a whole level compared to his original position as the manager of Spirit Beast Garden number 3. Under normal circumstances, someone else would temporarily take over the job during the undertaking of a sect mission and return the post after. Now, Hichinga had become the subordinate of the person who had replaced him. It was simply disgusting. They were using his low level of strength to say that he was not worthy of being the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden. Hichinga's heart was burning with anger. Being a manager of the Spirit Beast Garden was not a good job. It was only slightly better than ordinary chores. All kinds of spirit beasts in the Spirit Beast Garden had fiery tempers. Ordinary workers were easily injured, including the managers of the Spirit Beast Garden. There was a golden jade white tiger in Spirit Beast Garden number 3, and it was at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. Once it became angry, the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden had to go and suppress it. If they were not careful, they would be injured. Hichinga relied on his talent, the heart of beast taming, to take on the role of the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden despite his weak strength. The group of spirit beasts that were originally explosive and easily angered had been raised into obedient babies. At this time, someone actually appeared to reap the harvest. It was really hilarious. Was he not afraid of courting death? Chinga did not object to this arrangement. As long as there was a simple riot in the spirit beast garden, Fong Yu would be done for. As the manager of the spirit beast garden, he could treat the spirit beast garden as his own home and enjoy the defensive array inside. Now that someone had taken over, it would not work. His every move in the spirit beast garden could be seen by the manager, so he could only return to his original home. The rooms that the servant disciples lived in were all built uniformly. They were relatively independent houses with independent courtyards. It was similar to the independent courtyards that were built in the countryside in Chinga's previous life. From this, it could be seen that the Tianxian sect was rich and powerful. The places where the servant disciples lived were quite good. Chapter 36. Strength Upgrade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There was a short 1-month holiday after the sect mission. Chinga wanted to take advantage of this holiday to recuperate and improve his cultivation. At the same time, he wanted to check his harvest this time. Previously, he had only kept all the treasures outside and had not checked them in detail. Now that the inner part of the Tianxian sect was relatively safe, he could investigate his gains in detail. It just so happened that the selection of the legacy disciple of the Peak Master of Imperial Beast Peak would be held in a month. If he could successfully be selected, he could directly jump out of this current level, and his safety would also be greatly guaranteed. He had a lot of spirit stones, spirit coins, magic tools, and talismans. There was probably no servant disciple in the entire Tianxian sect who was richer than him. Even among the outer sect disciples, there were probably not many who were richer than him. It was really a wave of wealth. The most prized was the storage bag and the cultivation jade plate that Chinga had obtained from the two foundational cultivators. Cultivation techniques were precious anywhere. Chinga's current cultivation technique was only the most basic of mantras. The speed of cultivation was very slow, and the efficiency of condensing spiritual energy was also relatively poor. He had only cultivated 3 spells: ignition, berating, and lightness. He was only a servant disciple and not an official disciple. If he wanted to exchange for the sect's internal spells or cultivation techniques, the price he had to pay was slightly higher than that of an official disciple. Moreover, he wholeheartedly wanted to obtain a spiritual pet with good potential, so he did not spend too much on these things. Now, he needed to properly improve his strength. This mission allowed him to see many of his shortcomings. First of all, the spiritual energy in his body was relatively thin, and the purity was not high. Fortunately, he was quite proficient in berating. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to come back alive. He would probably be killed by those 2 robbers before he could reach the city. It would be best if he could switch to a stronger basic cultivation technique. Chinga took out all the cultivation jade plates he had obtained, as well as some secret manuals. Lesser Fallen Jade Lotus technique could help one cultivate to the foundation establishment realm. It used spiritual energy to condense a lotus flower in one's body. The degree of solidification of the petals of the flower represented one's own strength. It came with a spell, Meteor Fall Lotus Annihilation. Chinga had already read this manual and passed it to Wan Wan. The name of the spell was very domineering, but its power was far from the level of its name. The method of chi refinement was indeed a little more profound than the lesser profound heaven technique that he cultivated. The great profound body cleansing record was a body cultivation technique to cultivate the body. It captured the spiritual opportunities of heaven and earth to temper one's body. It was a cultivation technique that could be cultivated to the foundation establishment realm. However, the consumption was too great. Even though he had obtained great benefits this time, he felt his scalp go numb when he saw the items he needed for cultivation. The most important thing was capturing the spiritual machine, which was quite troublesome and a waste of time. Of course, the description was powerful too. The name of the 9 dragons air manipulation technique was very domineering, but it was not an immortal cultivation technique. Instead, it was an ordinary martial arts manual. An emperor of the mortal world with a crippled spiritual root was unable to cultivate but was unwilling to be lonely, so he stepped into the martial path. In the end, he relied on his own hard work and the support of the royal family's resources to cultivate to the level of a supreme grandmaster. Unfortunately, the path of the supreme grandmaster, about the same as the strength of the peak of the chi refinement realm, but not as strong as the path of immortal cultivation mainly because one would not have many methods, ended there. This should be considered the top martial arts secret manual in the mortal world. The interesting thing about the cultivation technique was that it used a special kind of energy, dragon energy or emperor energy. An ordinary mortal with a crippled spiritual root was actually able to sense this special energy. There were many special energies in this world. Light spirit energy, purple energy, black-yellow energy, devil energy, netherworld energy, supreme mystery energy, jade pure energy. There were countless special energies, but one had to have a true spiritual root to be able to sense them. Hichinga could not use the jade plate that had been carved on a bronze artifact with a special brush technique either. Su Miyuki had collected it in his storage bag. After Hichinga finished reading it, he sighed with emotion. That guy was indeed a genius. However, he had no intention of cultivating this for the time being. He would wait and see. The thunder body tempering technique could produce the sound of thunder and lightning with a special vibration frequency, tempering the body in all aspects with the sound of thunder. Combined with a special medicinal liquid, the sound could be used to forge the body and absorb the essence of the medicinal liquid. When the body was tempered to perfection, the user could use their bare hands to move a level. One magic tool. When Hichinga saw this cultivation technique, his eyes lit up. He knew very well that he was not a genius, and his comprehension was average. He had already understood this when he was cultivating various spells. However, after fusing with the sound, gathering butterfly, he was quite compatible with sound spells. In just a few short months, he had already cultivated berating to near Tao. The thunder body tempering technique was very suitable for him. Although it was a body cultivation technique, the compatibility was probably stronger than any other cultivation technique he was cultivating now. He then checked the other cultivation. Imparting jade plates and the secret cultivation technique records. In the end, he chose the little yin-yang 5 elements secrets. This cultivation method was quite compatible with the attributes of his spiritual root. It could lead straight to the foundation establishment realm. There was nothing special about it, but it was stable and neutral, and its spiritual power was pure and honest. Envied at Hichinga began to cultivate this cultivation technique in seclusion. At the same time, he also began to cultivate the thunder body tempering technique and berating. These were the most important. In front of a waterfall on the back mountain of the Imperial Beast Peak, Hichinga sat naked in the middle of the waterfall, constantly enduring the impact and tempering of the water. His body was trembling in an inexplicable rhythm. In front of him, a colorful butterfly was emitting an inexplicable sound wave. Upon careful observation, one could see that the frequency of the sound waves was strangely similar to the frequency of Hichinga's body trembling. His originally skinny body now looked much stronger. The muscles all over his body were quite eye-catching, but they did not look thick and ugly. Instead, they looked more beautiful and streamlined. After a month, Hichinga's strength had improved greatly. His level was still at the 5th level of chi refinement, but his strength had more than doubled compared to before. Berating was even more powerful now, but it still had not broken through to the last stage, which was near Tao. The energy cultivation technique had already completely transformed into the little yin-yang 5 element secrets. As it was not a recultivation, it only transformed the spiritual power in the body, so it did not take too long. The spiritual energy in his body was even purer. The biggest surprise for him was still the thunder body tempering technique. This cultivation method was quite compatible with him. With the help of the sound, gathering butterfly and the nourishment of medicine, Hichinga broke through to the third level of body refinement in a short period of time. It was equivalent to the third level of chi refinement, but it was only used to describe the body cultivation realm. Hichinga could be considered to be a dual cultivator. Usually, unless one was a peerless genius and had sufficient resources or did not plan to break through at all, very few people would do so. Not only was it a waste of resources, but it was also a waste of time. Most people would find it difficult to break through before their lifespan was exhausted, so why would they waste time cultivating two types? The main purpose of cultivating was to break through realms and extend one's lifespan. It had only been a short month. With the help of Hichinga's large amount of spirit coins, the strength of the sound, gathering butterfly quickly increased to the fourth level of chi refinement. Name: Hichinga. Age: 26, spiritual root purity. 35, level. 5th level of chi refinement / 3rd level of body refinement, cultivation method. Little Yin Yang 5 elements secrets, thunder body tempering technique, skills. Ignition, proficient, berating, superb, lightness, proficient, talisman enchantment, beginner, pet. Sound, gathering butterfly, level. 4th level chi refinement realm, potential. Level 2 high. Grade, nourished by 2 stalks of 1000-year-old spiritual liquid, its talent surpasses that of ordinary sound, gathering butterflies. All its abilities have been significantly improved. The probability of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm is very high. There is even a chance of stepping into the golden core realm. Abilities: hearing. It has extremely strong hearing and can clearly distinguish all sounds. It has an extremely strong sensitivity to sound. Spirit gathering. Gathers the surrounding spiritual energy and has a good affinity for spiritual energy. It's stronger than ordinary sound, gathering butterflies. Chapter 37. Hall of Punishment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hichinga, you've been exposed. Come to the Hall of Punishment. While Hichinga was cultivating hard, a group of people suddenly came in front of him with a token in their hands. He recognized it at a glance. It was indeed the token of the Hall of Punishment. The purple clothes they wore were also different from the other disciples. What is it? Hichinga was confused. After returning to the sect, other than the initial dismissal of his position as the manager of the Spirit Beast Garden, which was a little disgusting, he had spent the rest of his time peacefully. A sect disciple has filed a complaint about you killing his spirit pet. Now, we need you to go back with us to cooperate with the investigation. Zheng Shaoling from the Hall of Punishment had a cold and stern expression on her face. She looked rather valiant, and her purple clothes made her look very capable. Her temperament was quite outstanding and cold, but her figure was ordinary. Who filed the complaint? What evidence do you have that I killed their spirit pet? When Hichinga heard this, he was not anxious at all. The mission at that time had greatly improved his temperament. He was calm. Zheng Shaoling said, he said that he found the bloody feathers of his spirit beast, the Tizot bird, at the entrance of the Spirit Beast Garden where you used to work. Hichinga chuckled. What a joke. Whatever he says goes, huh? Should I go to his room and spit out a few mouthfuls of blood before filing a complaint against him for beating me up? Zheng Shaoling frowned. Seeing Hichinga's relaxed expression, she hesitated for a moment. Could it be that the person who filed a complaint against him had lied? However, she still tried to sound him out with a threatening tone. Do you know that the sex array formation has a recording function? If you really don't admit it, you'll be guilty of even more crimes if you're found out. Hichinga was not intimidated at all. Instead, he continued the conversation calmly. He was indeed a little surprised that the sex array had a recording function. I want to ask why his spirit pet, the Tizot bird, appeared outside the Spirit Beast Garden. As the owner of the spirit pet, shouldn't he be with his spirit pet at that time? As the owner of a spirit pet, doesn't he know that Tian Xian sect doesn't allow us to raise spirit pets wantonly in case they hurt other disciples? I heard you say that he found blood-stained feathers outside the spirit beast garden. That means that he wasn't with his spirit pet at that time. Isn't that a violation of the sect's rules? Zheng Xiaoling did not know what was going on, but she suddenly felt like her intelligence had been reduced. Why did she think of such a simple logic back then? At the same time, she was surprised by Hichinga's reaction. Ordinary sect disciples, especially servant disciples, would usually be trembling in fear when someone from the Hall of Punishment came knocking on their door. They would obediently follow them to the Hall of Punishment. There were also people like Hichinga who dared to refuse. How about this? You come with me first. The two of you will face each other in the hall, Zheng Xiaoling said. Hichinga nodded and followed behind her. He did not reject her again. She did not expect him to be so easy to talk to. In the past, the members of the Hall of Punishment were basically high and mighty. It was rare to see such people. Soon, they arrived at the Hall of Punishment and saw an old man in his 60s or 70s. His cheeks were still suffused with a faint red light, and he looked like he had taken good care of himself. He looked like he was in his 60s or 70s, which meant that he was definitely much older than that. He might not be far from death. Now that the two of you are confronting each other, who is the one who lied? Zheng Xiaoling sat in the main seat of the hall with a cold expression. Sir, I really didn't lie, Zhang Jiusui said immediately. Then tell him what happened again in front of him, Zheng Xiaoling said. Zhang Jiusui glanced at Hichinga and said unwillingly. I was raising a spirit pet, the Tizot bird. It had accompanied me for 60 to 70 years. It can be said that it had accompanied me for my entire life. I treated it better than my son. Now, it's actually dead. Don't say so much nonsense. Say the main content. Zheng Xiaoling coldly interrupted Zhang Jiosui's emotional speech. Zhang Jiusui nodded. The environment of the Imperial Beast Peak is quite suitable for the growth of spirit pets. I bring the Tizot bird to the Imperial Beast Peak every day. But that day, I accidentally brought the Tizot bird to the entrance of the Spirit Beast Garden. I suddenly had something urgent to attend to, so I left first. When I returned, the Tizot bird had already disappeared, leaving only a few feathers stained with blood on the ground. But there was only one person near the Spirit Beast Garden, and that person is you, Hichinga. Why are you still trying to deny it? Zhang Jiusui pointed at Hichinga with his withered hand, his face full of anger. He wished he could eat him up on the spot. Hichinga laughed after hearing that. What's wrong with what he said? Zheng Xiaoling asked. First of all, you're actually not from the Imperial Beast Peak. You go to the Imperial Beast Peak every day. You have to pay the toll, right? It looks like you're quite wealthy and don't care about this at all. You're really rich. The second point is that unrelated people are prohibited from wandering around the Spirit Beast Garden. Why were you unimpeded? Third, you left your spirit pet alone. Weren't you afraid that it would hurt the disciples of the sect? At the same time, that has violated the sect's management rules. Fourth, what's the strength of your spirit pet? It's a flying bird. I can't even fly now. Hichinga retorted bit by bit, but he never said that he did not kill the bird. When he killed that stupid bird, he did not leave any traces behind. He used berating, which shocked the opponent's mind. When it fell from the tree, he used the steel needle to poison him. There was not a trace of blood left behind, let alone blood-stained feathers. He only pointed out the illogical nature of the other party's words while still leaving himself a way out. This. Zhang Jiusui was a little hesitant. He really wanted to tear Hichinga apart. He was sure that his spirit pet had been killed by Hichinga. However, what he had done was not honorable either. The Tizot bird had been monitoring Hichinga. If this was exposed, he would definitely be severely punished. However, if he only brought up looking at the records of the day the Tizot bird died, it would not affect him much. He also concealed the fact that he had released the Tizot bird. I want to request to look through the sex array records. Zhang Jiusui could only be stubborn. Zheng Xiaoling looked at Zhang Jiosui's and Hichinga's expressions and knew that there must be something dirty going on. What did this have to do with her? Hichinga asked first. It's true that you can apply for the sex array records, but before that, don't we need to punish those who violated the sex rules? Not guarding your spirit pet well is in itself a violation of the sex rules. Zheng Xiaoling nodded. That's true. Zhang Jiusui violated the sex spirit pet control rules, but it didn't cause any serious impact. It didn't endanger the safety of the disciples, so he can be given a lighter punishment. According to the sex rules, you'll have to pay a fine of 300 spirit coins. As soon as Zheng Xiaoling finished speaking, Zhang Jiusui pulled a long face, and the wrinkles on his cheeks trembled. His heart was bleeding. 300 spirit coins were enough for him to cultivate for a long time. He had no choice. He was being forced now. Moreover, he did not want Hichinga to have an easy time. His spirit pet had died in Hichinga's hands. The spirit pet that he had spent so much effort on and which had accompanied him for half his life died just like that. Chapter 38. The villain is the first to sue. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hichinga frowned slightly when he heard that. There are so many things that he can't explain clearly. One look and you can tell that he has ulterior motives. How can we give him a lighter punishment? Why are you doubting me? Zheng Xiaoling's eyes turned cold. Hichinga shook his head helplessly. You can't just request to be shown the sex array records as you wish. Zheng Xiaoling looked at Zhang Jiusui seriously. The Hall of Punishment did have the authority to use the recording function of the sex protective array formation, but the authority was very limited and the matter had to be reported to the higher authorities. Otherwise, any random person in the Hall of Punishment could use the sex recording function. Would that not be a mess? Just think about it. If any random police officer could access your information, how terrifying would that be? She then turned to Hichinga and said, once we activate the sex array records, it means that the matter has blown up. You have to think about the consequences. Hichinga revealed a bright smile. Actually, there's no need to go through so much trouble. He said that he accidentally came to the entrance of the Spirit Beast Garden. Coincidentally, I have a photographic stone at the entrance of the Spirit Beast Garden that takes records every day. As everyone knows, the records in the photographic stone can't be changed. I can show you the records from exactly 1 month before I left the sect for the mission. Zhang Jiosui's eyelids twitched when he heard that, and he immediately had a bad feeling. If his spirit pet was killed, it definitely meant that the surveillance had been discovered. If the photographic stone was brought out now, the entire process of monitoring would have been captured. However, there was no record of how his spirit beast was killed. Everyone knew that the records in the photographic stone could not be changed, but they could be deleted. He had been tricked, and his heart broke out in a cold sweat. How could a kid who grew up in the sect be so scheming? Forget it, I won't continue with the complaint. I don't trust you. Zhang Jiusui immediately admitted defeat. There must be something wrong with you. Hichinga mocked. My spirit pet is already dead. What other problems can there be? Zhang Jiusui was stubborn. Hichinga sneered. You said it yourself. The spirit pet that accompanied you for 60 to 70 years is now dead. Yet you don't intend to continue investigating. It can be seen that you really are cold-blooded. Even if you don't trust me, don't tell me you don't trust the members of the Hall of Punishment either. Hichinga asked. Is there a problem with my photographic stone? Even if there is, they'll definitely be able to tell. Why do you look so guilty? Did you do something bad? Zheng Xiaoling stared sharply at Zhang Jiusui. Zhang Jiusui could only brace himself and say, "It's better to mobilize the sex array records than use a photographic stone." He Qingge sneered. "Are you saying that the people of the Hall of Punishment don't have the ability to distinguish?" "I didn't say that," Zhang Jiusui said fiercely. "I just don't trust you." "What's going on?" Zheng Xiaoling interrupted their conversation. "Take out your photographic stone and we'll judge for ourselves." He Qingge smiled and took out the photographic stone he had prepared from his storage bag. It had clearly recorded the situation outside the Spirit Beast Garden for the month before He Qingge left. Zhang Jiosui's face was dripping with sweat as the video played. He did not wander into the Spirit Beast Garden by accident. He would bring his bird there every day. Sometimes, he would be lazy and not go, so he would just let his bird go. It clearly recorded the images of Zhang Jiusui and the Tizot bird. On the contrary, He Qingge had never appeared. During that time, he happened to be in seclusion every day. For the sake of being able to survive, he would try his best to cultivate every day. He Qingge said, "It looks like he didn't come to the Spirit Beast Garden by accident, and he didn't leave the Tizot bird at the entrance of the Spirit Beast Garden by accident either." Zheng Xiaoling's face was as cold as ice. Previously, she had only thought that it was an unintentional matter and had given a lighter punishment. She did not expect that the slap in the face would come so quickly. She had even been deceived. She looked at Zhang Jiusui with a sharp gaze. "Looks like I misjudged you. You did this knowingly. Moreover, you were spying on the Spirit Beast Garden. What did you want to achieve by monitoring the Spirit Beast Garden of the Tian Xian sect?" He Qingge interjected, "Are you a spy from another sect?" Zhang Jiosui's body immediately trembled. "Don't spout nonsense. Don't slander me. I'm a disciple of the Zhang family. How could I be a spy from another sect? Looks like there might be something wrong with the Zhang family's disciples." He Qingge smiled. Zheng Xiaoling said coldly, "Suppress him and pry open his mouth. If necessary, use the soul search technique." Zhang Jiosui's whole body panicked. He knelt on the ground and shouted, telling the truth. No, I'm definitely not a spy. I just wanted to monitor He Qingge. If he was treated as a spy of another sect and they used the soul search technique, he might not be able to walk out of the Hall of Punishment alive in the future. The use of the soul search technique would cause great damage to his soul. He was already very old. If his soul was damaged again, his body functions would immediately decline, and his lifespan would be greatly reduced. Why were you spying on him? Zheng Xiaoling suddenly understood the problem. I don't know either. It was Zhang Lingmu who asked me to monitor He Qingge's every move, Zhang Jiusui answered honestly. Bring Zhang Lingmu here, Zheng Xiaoling instructed. Soon, Zhang Lingmu was also brought to the Hall of Punishment. He was much calmer than Zhang Jiusui. He did not feel worried or afraid at all even though his plan had been exposed. He said that you gave him the order to spy on He Qingge. Zheng Xiaoling felt disgusted. I was just passing on young Master Zhang's words, Zhang Lingmu was calm. He already knew that He Qingge had come back alive, and he felt that it was unbelievable. Zhang Jianqi had spent so much effort, but he still could not deal with He Qingge. He did not dare to act rashly. Perhaps He Qingge had hidden secrets. He wanted to wait for his young master to return, but after such a long time, Zhang Jianqi still had not returned. He had not sent any news back either. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Young master might have met his demise. That was why Zhang Jiusui was pushed out. He wanted the villain to complain first and take down He Qingge. Who knew that He Qingge would have prepared this beforehand and had the photographic stone? Zheng Xiaoling was not the person he had contacted earlier. His plan was instantly thrown into chaos. Bring him over as well. Is there anything else you haven't told me? Tell me everything so we don't have to make another trip. Zheng Shaoling was running out of patience. This incident had suddenly changed from a possible spy planted by another sect to a clown-like plot. The culprit had even complained first. It really made her feel disgusted. Young master left the sect to look for Foundation establishment items and hasn't returned yet, Zhang Lingmu said. Zheng Shaoling was a little angry after hearing this. She turned to look at Zhang Josue. You've been monitoring the sect's official business for a long time, and you even indulged your spirit pet at will in an attempt to deceive the Hall of Punishment. You've seriously violated the sect's rules. You're really bold. Confine all his belongings and escort him to the demon suppression cave where he'll be guarded for 300 years. She then turned to look at Zhang Lingmu. Threatening or coercing others to spy on fellow sect disciples and spying on the sect's official locations is a violation of the sect's rules. Head to the demon suppression cave with him first. We'll discuss the details when your young master returns. He Chinga's lips curled into a smile. It was settled. Zhang Josue looked quite old. It was impossible for him to come out of the demon suppression cave alive. Without breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm, it was impossible for his lifespan to break through to 300 years old. Moreover, he looked to be in his 70s and 80s now. He was not far from death. Chapter 39. Joining the Hall of Punishment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Zhang Josue heard the punishment, his face turned pale and he fell to the ground. He kept looking at Zhang Lingmu, hoping that he could find a way. However, Zhang Lingmu himself was just a small figure. The member of the Hall of Punishment that he had contacted previously could only stand obediently beside Zheng Shaoling. They did not dare to move or even look her in the eye. A feeling of incomparable despair instantly pervaded the air. What kind of place was the demon suppression cave? Once they entered and came out again, they would probably not look like humans anymore. Demonic energy was rampant inside. If one stayed inside for a long time, it would definitely disturb and pollute the spiritual energy in one's body. At that time, not to mention the Foundation establishment realm, it would be difficult to maintain their own combat strength and lifespan. Lady, please don't. I'm just a messenger. I didn't hide anything. I told you everything. Zhang Lingmu immediately put on a long face. Why are you questioning my punishment? I'm not going to let you go. Zheng Xiaoling's voice was cold. Besides, if you've done nothing wrong, your master will naturally let you out when he returns. Zhang Lingmu lowered his head in fear, not daring to say a word. Then, he glared at He Chinga and said through gritted teeth, I'm afraid my master won't be able to return. All of this was done by He Chinga. A long time had passed. He Chinga had been back for a month, but there was still no news from Zhang Jianqi. It was as if he had disappeared, including the people he had brought with him. He Chinga burst into laughter. You old dog, you're really stupid. You bite whoever you catch. Even if he did it, he could not admit it now. Moreover, he did not do it at all. Even if the cultivation world had so many detection methods, it was impossible to detect that it was him. After all, although Zhang Jianqi died in front of him, he was not the one who killed him. Instead, it was Wan who killed him. He had nothing to do with it. No matter what, it was impossible to lead it back to him. After all, there was no protective array outside the Tian Xian sect. Don't worry, the truth will be revealed and you'll die a horrible death. My young master had a special mark left by his ancestors. The person who killed him will definitely have a mark on their body. Zhang Lingmu glared at He Chinga fiercely. The people of the Zhang family's main branch had a special mark planted by the Zhang family's ancestors on their bodies. In fact, he wasn't sure if Zhang Jianbing was dead or not. It was obviously abnormal that there was no news for such a long time. He wanted to save himself now. If Zhang Jianqi really died outside, he would probably die of old age waiting for him in the demon suppression cave. In fact, he did not believe that Chinga could kill Zhang Jianqi. After all, the two of them were too far apart in terms of strength, level, and equipment. When Chinga heard this news, he was a little surprised, but also a little glad that he did not kill him. "You're stupid and you don't know it. I don't know the strength of your young master, but for you to address him as young master, his strength should be stronger than yours. I'm only at the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm, and I can't even resist your pressure. How exactly did I kill your young master?" Chinga mocked calmly. "Anyway, even if it's not you, it has something to do with you. Zhang Lingmu bit him to death. No matter what, he definitely did not want to enter the demon suppression cave." Zheng Xiaoling used her spiritual energy to carefully examine Chinga's body. She would be able to sense if he was hiding his cultivation and how strong he was. After checking, she said impatiently, "All right, escort the old thing." She did not believe that Chinga could kill someone at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. If she believed it, it would simply be an insult to her intelligence. Moreover, if Chinga really did kill him, it would be the Zhang family's own business if he had a mark on his body. "Thank you for discerning right from wrong." Chinga thanked her repeatedly. Zheng Xiaoling's eyes moved slightly. "Do you want to work in the Hall of Punishment?" Chinga was a little surprised and suspected that he had misheard. The authority of the Hall of Punishment was very great, and the benefits were also quite good. Most importantly, the threshold to enter was very high. His level 0.5 strength was simply not up to standard. Those who wanted to enter the Hall of Punishment were usually at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. Their strength and talent were not ordinary. They had to be below the age of 30. "I'm afraid my strength and talent are not enough." Chinga knew his own limits. "It's fine. You'll follow me from now on." Zheng Xiaoling did not care at all. "Miss, this is against the sect's rules." At this moment, an old man in a black robe reminded her. Zheng Xiaoling did not care. "How is it breaking the rules of the sect?" "Show me the rules, then. If I say it's okay, then it's okay." Chinga immediately felt that this person had a great background. At the same time, this was an example of double standards. However, so what if the people from the Hall of Punishment had double standards? Who said that the referee could not play the game? Chinga was about to agree, but sharp killing intent was coming straight at him. Was it that obvious? Chinga turned around and saw a pale-faced man following behind Zheng Xiaoling. Chinga's eyes flashed slightly, and his body instantly stiffened and trembled as if his body was under great pressure. Zheng Xiaoling was a little suspicious. She followed Chinga's gaze and immediately realized that something was wrong. The pale-faced man, Zhao Yangzhe, instantly retracted his killing intent. "Humph." Zheng Xiaoling snorted and said, "Report here tomorrow." "Who should I look for here? I'm afraid that they won't let me in. After all, I'm only at the 5th level of Qi refinement." Chinga smiled bitterly. "That's true. This is my token for you." Zheng Xiaoling nodded and took out a token from her waist. Chinga took it happily. Had he found a powerful backer now? However, Zhao Yangzhe's eyes flashed with a trace of displeasure and disdain as he gritted his teeth. Chinga pretended that he did not see anything. A person who did not even know how to hide his expression would be killed by others in the future. After returning from the Hall of Punishment, Chinga began to prepare for the selection of the legacy disciples of the Imperial Beast Peak. Su Zime only told him that everything had to be done 3 times, but she did not tell him the method of selection. If he did not make some preparations, he would feel uneasy. He found a level 0.1 flying sword from his many spoils of war and prepared to refine it. There were too many spoils of war this time, and they had not been dealt with yet. He did not have the necessary things for the time being. He had obtained a lot of spirit coins, and he did not need to deal with them in advance to exchange for resources. Chinga took out a level 0.1 top-grade magic sword and refined it. It was not something that someone of his strength should have. It was very easy for others to covet it. The problem was that the selection test this time relied on opportunity and luck. To obtain a level 1 top-grade magic tool with such strength, did it not show that Hichinga's luck was extraordinary? When the opportunity came, he had to grab it. The sect mission had caused a small change in his mentality. He knew that he could not continue to live in seclusion. After all, he did not have the talent to live forever, so he did not have the right to continue living in seclusion. Chapter 40. Sleepless Whale. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The process of refining the magic sword was not complicated or difficult. Hichinga poured the spiritual energy in his body into the magic sword and continuously cleansed the Tao patterns engraved on the inside of the magic sword. It was a process of familiarizing the magic tool with its own spiritual energy. It was quite fast and could be used as quickly as though it was one's own arm. As for something like blood binding, that was not something that a level 1 magic tool could do. It had to be at least a level 2 magic tool for it to bind to its master with blood and communicate with the master's mind. Su Yunhe detonated his top-grade weapon after Zhang Jianqi approached. It was not that he could not detonate it out of the body, but the spiritual energy fluctuations might be detected and guarded against. The level 1 magic tool moved with the spiritual energy, while the level 2 magic tool moved with the heart. From this, one could see the difference between them. It could also be seen that the difference between the Foundation Establishment realm and the Qi Refinement realm was very large. Today's incident also reminded Hichinga that Zhang Jianqi had a mark on his body that could be attached to the person who killed him. In the future, when he wanted to kill people from other factions, he had to be careful. If he were to be contaminated, he did not know when he would be targeted and buried by others. The next day, he took the token that Jing Shaoling gave him. As expected, he entered the Hall of Punishment unimpeded. All kinds of surprised gazes landed on him. The way they looked at him was a little like they were looking at a gigolo who lived off women. Even a member of the Hall of Punishment was stronger than him. He felt a little uncomfortable being the center of attention. He stayed in the Hall of Punishment for a few days in a row. He did not have much work and was rather idle. He mainly followed Zheng Shaoling. "Miss, I want to take a leave of absence tomorrow." Hichinga walked up to Zheng Shaoling. Zheng Shaoling frowned. He did not have a good mentality. He wanted to take leave from such an idle job. "What's the matter?" Hichinga explained, "Tomorrow is the Imperial Beast Peak selection for the Legacy Disciples. I want to give it a try. Are you qualified?" Zheng Shaoling was a little straightforward. Hichinga's strength and talent were indeed not good. He had cultivated for more than 20 years, but he was still at the 5th level of Qi refinement. He was not a genius at all. One must know that the requirement to enter the Tian Xian sect was to enter the Foundation Establishment realm before the age of 40. Only someone like this could be considered a genius. Those who entered the Foundation Establishment realm beyond the age of 40 could only become elders or outer sect elders. The legacy disciples of the various peaks enjoyed treatment that surpassed the treatment shown to inner sect disciples. The spots were quite precious. Usually, the people selected were basically people with top-notch talent and strength. Under normal circumstances, the selection would be conducted among the inner sect disciples. She did not know about the selection of each of the 108 peaks of the Tian Xian sect. It had nothing to do with her, so she did not care about it. Everyone can participate. I'm just going to try my luck. After staying for so many days, he understood that Zheng Shaoling did not think before speaking. She was not afraid of offending people at all. In short, she was very straightforward. Then go and try your luck. Zheng Shaoling smiled and decided to go to the Imperial Beast Peak to see what kind of selection it was. Could it be that the Imperial Beast Peak was so desolate? Anyone could participate in the selection. In the future, the competition between the various peaks of the sect would probably be interesting. The next morning, the sky was clear. Everyone gathered at the selection venue. It was an empty square, and a large area was filled with people. Perhaps it was because everyone who knew the news had come, so there were no restrictions, and everyone could come here to try their luck. After all, if they were to pass the selection, would they not be able to reach the heavens in a single step? Chinga bumped into a few familiar faces in the noisy square. For example, Li Lu, Shen Su, and Gu Meng, who he had invited to dinner before. Chinga did not go up to talk to them. After all, it was very likely that they would be competing with each other. No one knew what would happen. Other than them, there were also many people wearing inner sect disciple uniforms. They stood at the front of the square. Silence. A loud voice came from the sky. A few figures stood on the clouds, surrounded by a white mist that made it impossible to see clearly what they looked like. The square instantly fell silent. Everyone obediently stopped talking. All right. Everyone, come up. As soon as that person finished speaking, Chinga did not even have time to react. Chinga suddenly felt the world spin as his entire body flew up. A long and majestic cry sounded in their ears, making them feel relaxed. Chinga's body tightened. Just the sound alone could affect his mood. It was too scary. He looked at the people around him and found that they were all engrossed in the sound. No one had woken up. Now, everyone was floating in the air, ascending into the sky. When they looked up, they saw something huge wrapped in clouds. It was like a giant city in the sky, so huge that it exceeded one's imagination. Spirit beast. Sleepless whale, level. Unknown, potential. Unknown, likes. Probably likes beautiful music. Ability. Unknown, evolution. None. Chinga had insight of the heart of beast taming, but he did not know anything. It should be that the creature's strength was much higher than his, so there was no way for him to know. The peak master of the Imperial Beast Peak was slightly surprised to see that Chinga's eyes were clear and he had not been affected for too long. A disciple at the 5th level of the Chi refinement realm was actually able to escape from the influence of the long cry of the sleepless whale so quickly. It seemed interesting. Soon, everyone was on the back of the sleepless whale. It was like a huge island, and everyone standing on it felt that the place was quite spacious. They could build a castle here. When they landed on the whale's back, their eyes flickered slightly. There was indeed a huge castle here, and it was filled with flowers and all kinds of colorful magical things. Everyone looked at the castle in front of them in a daze, as well as the magical things that were growing all over it. It was like a castle in a sky garden. They looked at the magical things growing on it with interest. It was quiet, and no one spoke. Chinga was humming a beautiful tune. It could be considered one of the more beautiful classical songs from his previous life. Coupled with his talent in singing, it was even more perfect. This was a gamble. From the heart of beast taming, he had detected that this whale liked beautiful music. Perhaps he could win the favor of the peak master by doing this. Soon, they arrived at a huge mountain peak. From afar, it looked as if it was made of black gold. It was covered with lush trees, and one could still see the black color of the mountain. Seeing this, Chinga raised his eyebrows slightly. This could not be Black Mountain, right? When he went out to do the sect mission and killed the 2 people who robbed him, he obtained a notebook that recorded this Black Mountain. It also recorded that there was a huge spiritual python on the top of the mountain that could kill people, and there were flowers that flickered with a strange light. These were not the most important things. The most important thing was that that person had recorded that there was an immortal encounter on Black Mountain. Could the assessment be related to this?